In a galaxy far, far away, the United Galactic Federation convicts evil genius scientist Dr. Jumba Jukiba of illegal genetic experimentation, having recovered proof when they presented his aggressive, near-indestructible creation, Experiment 626. Jumba takes pride in his masterpiece, which was created to be bulletproof and fireproof, thinks faster than a supercomputer, and lifts objects 3,000 times its size. Worried about its imminent danger, the Council has sentenced 626 to be exiled to an unpopulated asteroid to live the rest of its life escorted by Captain Gantu of the United Galactic Federation. Having secured 626, they programmed the sentries to fire only on him. During transport, 626 uses its saliva to break free and escape on a police cruiser. They quickly chased and shot the ship, forcing 626 to use the hyperdrive to escape to Earth. The Grand Councilwoman is furious when she discovers that prisoner 626 has escaped to Earth. She calls in the Council's foremost expert on Earth, Agent Pleakley, to discuss their plan to recover the fugitive monstrosity. When she suggested blowing up the planet, Pleakley sternly objected, explaining that Earth is a protected wildlife reserve. He describes how they have used the planet to rebuild the endangered mosquito population. He also advises against taking a military force to Earth, as it would cause mass mayhem and planet-wide panic. To facilitate a more covert retrieval, she is forced to rely on Jumba's expertise to bring in his creation in exchange for his freedom, to which he agrees. Worried that Jumba would go overboard, the Grand Councilwoman orders Pleakley to be in charge and keep tight control on him. On Kauai, the eccentric Lilo is late for hula class after playing on the beach. She sneaks inside during class, still wet, which disrupts everyone else. His hula teacher asks her why she is late, and she makes an outrageous lie, to which her classmate Myrtle calls her crazy. Lilo pounces and bites her, but her hula teacher breaks it up. He tells her he will have to tell her sister about it, to which she begs not to, claiming only to want to dance. Before leaving, he tells Lilo to wait for her sister by the porch, but she walks home alone instead. She tries to play with her classmates and shows them her disfigured doll, but the others run away. Later, Lilo's sister Nanny is furious when she discovers that Lilo ignored her instructions to wait for her at school. When she arrived home, she found the door locked and nailed shut. She tried to convince Lilo to open the door when the social worker walked in on her, threatening her sister. When he refused to talk outside, she took him to the back, where she had to run and sneak inside through a window to open the door for him. He introduces himself as Agent Bubbles, the social worker sent by the government when things go wrong. He later discovers she left Lilo alone at home with the stove on. Things get worse when he finds Lilo eerily curses her friends with voodoo and witchcraft. Before he leaves, he tells Lilo to call him if she is left alone again, while reminding Nani that she has 3 days to improve Lilo's home situation. Once the social worker leaves, Nani chases Lilo for her antics and worries that she doesn't understand their dire situation. Later that night, Nani reconciles with Lilo when suddenly the power goes out, and they witness a falling star, which happens to be Experiment 626, crash landing on Kauai. Nani overhears Lilo wishing for a friend and feels so bad that she takes her to the shelter the next day to adopt a dog. 626 winds up on the street when he is suddenly run over by an oncoming truck. They take it back to the pound, worried that it is dead, when it miraculously recovers, scaring the dogs of its unusual appearance. He breaks free from its cage and escapes outside when Jumba and Pleakley show up and shoot at him. He returns inside, looking for another way out, when Lilo shows up at the kennel, looking for a dog. 626 thinks of using Lilo as a cover against Jumba and pretends to be a dog, retracting its extra arms, spikes, and antennas. After much convincing, Lilo adopts 626 and names him Stitch. Jumba is furious when it makes fun of him that he tried to shoot him, but Pleakley stops him when Lilo stands between them. Pleakley explains that they need to blend in as they look like alien monsters. Lilo runs into Myrtle and her friends and tries to befriend them after what happened yesterday, but refuses to accept her apology. Noticing Jumba and Pleakley disguises, Stitch hijacks Myrtle's bike and escapes to the beach with Lilo in the back seat. Stitch drives all over the island only to discover they are isolated from the city, much to Stitch's dismay. Stitch struggled to adjust to his pretend life, resisting his inner desire to destroy everything and trying to keep up with his disguise as a pet dog. Even Lilo noticed Stitch is quite the troublemaker and suggested they work on it. When no one was looking, Jumba and Pleakley tried to capture Stitch, but he fought back and bit Pleakley's head, to which Nani panicked, worried that Stitch had bitten someone's head off. Nani's boss sees what happened and fires her, blaming Nani for the commotion that Stitch caused. When they got home, Stitch did his usual routine and destroyed stuff. Nani was about to kick him out when Lilo used Ohana against her, a saying they strongly believed in. Ohana means family, and family means that nobody gets left behind or forgotten. Jumba pities Stitch and regrets not giving him a greater purpose aside from destroying things. Once there was nothing left to destroy, he had nothing else. One night, Stitch wakes Lilo over a storybook he found about the ugly duckling. She explains how the ugly duckling got lost, but his family found him and finally found where he belonged. The next day, Agent Bubbles arrived at their house and heard that Nani had lost her job. He later leaves, but not before urging her to find one before his next visit, while also telling Lilo to discipline Stitch. Lilo and Stitch accompany Nani, but repeatedly ruin her chances of finding a job instead. Lilo tries to use Elvis Presley to teach Stitch how to be good, but it doesn't work. Having failed almost all job applications, she mopes at the beach when David, Nani's boyfriend, invites them surfing. Nani thought it would be a good change of pace to spend some time with Lilo. Everything was going well when Stitch started to feel envious of Lilo playing with Nani and David. He wants to join in the fun and asks Lilo to go surfing. Jumba is confused with Stitch, who wants to return to the water, so he uses this chance to grab him while they are surfing. Jumba and Pleakley pull Stitch underwater, who tries to cling onto Lilo and drags her under, but Nani frees his grip on her. Lilo asks David to save Stitch, who manages to escape from Jumba and Pleakley but briefly loses consciousness underwater. Agent Bubbles witnessed everything and told Nani that this wasn't working as well as she hoped. He explains how he understands that she is trying but claims that she must also understand what is best for Lilo. He tells her he will drop by in the morning to pick up Lilo, suggesting that he will have to put her into foster care, much to everyone's dismay. David claims he originally believed Nani would make it work, but everything changed when he showed up, which made Stitch feel bad. Stitch later sees Nani and Lilo spending their last night together, and he starts to question where he belongs, just like the ugly duckling. Feeling guilty, he later leaves the house to wait in the middle of the forest, hoping his so-called family will come to pick him up. The next day, the Grand Councilwoman is furious at Jumba and Pleakley for failing to capture Stitch, so she fires them for their incompetence. Having been fired, Jumba decides to do things his way now that the council's rules do not bind him. He finds Stitch still waiting in the forest for his family, to which Jumba explains he doesn't have one, having been created in a lab. Stitch refuses to be taken apart and returns to the house just as Nani left. David dropped by to tell Nani that he may have found a job for her, and they quickly ran to sort it out before Agent Bubbles arrived to pick up Lilo. Lilo was shocked to see the alien Jumba brazenly break into her home to catch Stitch. Jumba no longer cares about collateral damage and does whatever he wants. After an unfortunate accident with Jumba's gun, the house exploded, which Lilo was surprisingly safe. After successfully landing the job, Nani gets worried when he sees a fire truck headed toward their house. She finds their home destroyed by an explosion while Agent Bubbles talks to Lilo. She tries to convince him to give her one more chance, but he refuses. Lilo overhears them arguing and runs away into the forest. Stitch finds Lilo, but she blames him for ruining everything when suddenly Captain Gantu shows up and catches them both. Nani follows Lilo into the forest, but is shocked to find the giant Captain Gantu, who puts Lilo and Stitch inside a glass pod. Stitch managed to escape before the ship flew, to which Nani demanded that he tell her what had happened to Lilo. When he is about to tell her, Jumba and Pleakley show up and manage to capture the near-indestructible Stitch. Nani demands they return Lilo, but Pleakley explains that it is already out of their hands. Stitch feels bad and tells Nani about Ohana, suggesting he intends to rescue Lilo. He then convinces Jumba and Pleakley to help him, and they chase Gantu on their spaceship. Stitch lands on Gantu's ship and tries to free Lilo, but Gantu uses the ship's thrusters to knock him off his ship, where Stitch briefly loses consciousness when he falls back to the ground. Promising to rescue Lilo, Stitch hijacks a fuel tank truck and drives it straight to a volcano. Using the explosion, Stitch lands back on Gantu's ship, knocking him out and throwing him overboard. He then goes out back to free Lilo and returns to the others before Gantu's ship explodes. Back on the ground, David helps them return to shore when the Grand Councilwoman's men capture Stitch. Gantu tries to explain his failure, but she refuses to listen and forces Gantu to retire. Despite being captured, Stitch shows them that he is well behaved, even when he asks permission to say goodbye to Lilo, much to their surprise. Pleakley feels bad and wonders if Stitch needs to return, to which the Grand Councilwoman claims that she cannot change what the council has decided. Thanks to Agent Bubbles' hint, Lilo claims that she owns Stitch, having paid for him at the shelter, and demands that she return him or else be accused of stealing. Agent Bubbles then supports her claim, explaining that aliens are about following the rules. With that said, the Grand Councilwoman decrees that Stitch will be sentenced to life in exile on Earth. She also adds that as caretaker of the alien life form named Stitch, their family will now be under the protection of the United Galactic Federation. Jumba and Pleakley also stayed behind on Earth and helped rebuild their home with everyone's help. Stitch has officially become a member of their family and helps out with cooking, cleaning, and even washing. Pleakley and Jumba show up on special occasions, as does Agent Bubbles, who checks in on them. They then go on adventures as a family and live happily ever after. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.